Here's the thing, objectively speaking, Modern Warfare defined a new generation of Call of Duty. Whether that's for the good or for the bad, that's entirely up to you, your thoughts on the game, and how you see fit. But it not only ushered in a new era for Call of Duty, but also defined it crystal clear. Today, I want to take a little bit of time to examine what we've seen change at a fundamental level for the entire franchise of Call of Duty, and it all starting with Modern Warfare. Some things for the better, some things for the worse, but we're going to take a look at it today. As we go along, let your thoughts down below. What do you think of Modern Warfare? What do you think of these defining points here for the future of Call of Duty? Is there anything that we missed? Whatever it is, feel free to let me know your thoughts down below. But as well, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you drop a like down below. Let's aim for 1,000 likes here on this video. And if you're new to the channel and want to stay up to date with all things Modern Warfare, Warzone, and anything COD related, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. And finally, a big thank you to Z-League for sponsoring this video, but more on them in a bit. That said, let's talk about Modern Warfare as a new defining moment in Call of Duty's history. So right from the very beginning, Modern Warfare really tried to make an impact here and make its presence known from the very get-go. Modern Warfare itself, well, that was a return of fan-favorite characters, a storyline, in an era that resonated with so many, starting over a decade before the soft reboot here. From the very beginning, I remember this really resonating with people, really sticking in people's minds, so much so to that reveal trailer where they're all walking through the woods and Captain Price turns around, just goes Bravo 6 going dark, kicks off the rest of the trailer. That from the very beginning was a hook for players and was something that brought back so many that were there from the very beginning, the originals, that maybe tailed off during the years, because let's be honest, the years leading up to Modern Warfare, they were statistically speaking a downward trend after, say, Call of Duty Ghosts, which, fun fact, even though you'll see everything regarding social media, YouTube videos, Twitter posts, everything like that, you'll usually see Ghosts getting trashed. That was the last game that really sold tremendously well. Since then, the only games that really hit peaks out of that valley were Black Ops 3 and Call of Duty World War II. But Modern Warfare was a revitalization here. It brought back so many and immediately brought Call of Duty back into the forefront. But on top of that, Call of Duty changed the formula in so many different ways with this past year. A lot of the big ones being cross-play and, as a result, also cross-progression. For the first time in Call of Duty's history, we saw this cross-play happen, and it was something that really brought Call of Duty back up to the leaders, the front-runners in the industry for things that aren't necessarily commonplace within games, but are getting there. Cross-play, no longer having to worry about if your friends were on PlayStation 4 or Xbox One while you were on PC or any other of that love triangle of consoles. You no longer had to worry about that. You could end up playing with anybody you wanted. Now, sure, that introduces some downsides, which we'll talk about in a little bit here at this, but that was awesome to be able to remove that barrier of entry. Also, cross-progression was phenomenal as well, because like myself and many others, you could jump from platform to platform and still have everything unlocked. Your rank, your customization items, your weaponry, all that stuff was all the same no matter if you were on Xbox One, PlayStation 4, or PC, and then moved over to a different console. It was all right there. And that was the first time we had ever even considered that being possible for Call of Duty, and it's kind of become a commonplace. Another huge groundbreaking thing for Call of Duty that sets the precedent now going forward, and is something that we never really considered would be possible, was free DLC. Before Modern Warfare, when was the last time you ever heard the words free and Activision in the same sentence? Probably never, because up until that point, the decade plus of Call of Duty, everything was paired out individually. Sure, some things were better than others, like you had those $2 to $3 camo packs back in Black Ops 2 and Ghost, but then you had terrible things like the year before Modern Warfare of Black Ops 4, where there were thousands upon thousands of items and supply drops, and if you wanted anything, your odds were very, very slim, and a lot of that pushed you towards paying for drops. Borderline gambling in a sense. So to have free DLC was huge in and of itself. And then on top of that, another thing that was previously never thought to be possible was free DLC for all platforms at once. The removal of that exclusivity, though there was a slight asterisk on that because that was kind of paired to elsewhere, not necessarily anything huge, but all players ended up getting every single DLC, every single map, everything all at the same time, regardless of what platform you played on. That was a huge thing because previously, in the Xbox 360 licensing days, that was 30 days beforehand. Same thing going into PlayStation 4 with PlayStation and Sony's agreement with Call of Duty, but with Black Ops 4 at least was only 1 week rather than the full 30 days. But Modern Warfare said, no, we're not doing that. We're cutting everything and we're doing all at once and all for free. Another huge thing that Modern Warfare did that I have to commend greatly was the fact of they removed supply drops. Now, I know supply drops fundamentally could be something that is pretty decent. As it was intended with Advanced Warfare, it was meant to just give players something extra they could earn simply for their playtime. If you read into it, the monetization aspect of it was never intended from Condrey and Schofield, but Activision got a hold of that and saw that it was something that made a boatload of money and ran with it. So fundamentally speaking, that additional extra stuff you could earn for just simply playing the game, I understand where that might not be as great to not see it anymore, but when you come off of Black Ops 4 and there were thousands of items, 75% of them likely filler items like charms and individual camos, that was such an amazing relief to not have to deal with that for another year. And with Modern Warfare proving that it doesn't need to be there, I don't think that we'll see supply drops again, thankfully. Kind of by extension, the next other thing that I thought was kind of generationally defining for Call of Duty was the fact that we see free weapons. Of course, they're in the Battle Pass still, but nicely compared to Black Ops 4 the year before, they're not at tier 50 and tier 100. Instead, they're at tier 15 and tier 30, so you can earn even one of them with the Battle Pass bundle immediately, and then shortly thereafter for the second one. But after that, even still, it's not like you have to wait for them to go into supply drops and test your luck or anything like that. Simply all you have instead is just the challenge that you can unlock these within multiplayer if you missed out on the base weaponry this season before. And of course, you won't be able to get those exclusive blueprints that came along at the later tiers in the Battle Pass from the season beforehand, but you don't miss out on that base weapon, which is the biggest part. And when we talk about weapons, we of course can't forget about the things like gunsmith and weapon crafting. You could not only make different variations of weapons, but you could also save your own and customize a weapon to however you saw fit. Plus the ability to save them and quickly access them through your armory. That was huge for Call of Duty and customization. One thing that I think was truly one of the best changes ever made in terms of functionality and on-the-fly gameplay changes was that of the ability to edit your creator class on the fly. You can do this in private match, in actual multiplayer, and this is by extension translated over into Black Ops Cold War, and I would imagine also into Call of Duty games in the future. That is phenomenal for me to be able to make those adjustments on the fly, and it was a change that I can't believe took as long as it did to be implemented. But also give things like missions that gave you blueprint rewards for just simply completing different challenges. You of course had that Battle Pass, which I guess could be subjectively speaking positive or negative depending on who you ask, but it gave you a lot of stuff to grind through with, again, those big key marquee ticket items of a season introduced for free. You had gunfight tournaments with actual rewards. But perhaps the single most largest change to the fundamentals of Call of Duty was the introduction of free to play. Something that, again, Activision and free doesn't often go hand in hand, and with Call of Duty being a franchise that is capitalized upon every single year so that they can make that revenue, free doesn't seem like it's something you'd expect to hear, but Warzone really took it and knocked it out of the park. Warzone changed Call of Duty forever. Modern Warfare, of course, brought Call of Duty back up into the limelight in terms of overall sales for a specific title, but Warzone absolutely blew that out of the water, since launch surpassing 100 million unique users, and of course, bolstering up Modern Warfare to now the most selling Call of Duty of all time. Warzone as itself could be making a case for defining a generation of Call of Duty, especially given that it's the centerfold of all these coming experiences of Modern Warfare, Cold War, Vanguard here in 2021, and whatever may be on in the future for Infinity Ward, Treyarch, and Sledgehammer's upcoming titles after those. But the largest point being of that was free to play. There's no longer any barrier of entry to try Call of Duty out. Granted, it may not be the traditional Call of Duty experience that many have become accustomed to over the past decade plus, but it's a good way to get a taste of what the franchise is about. And I think ease of accessibility is something that can always be celebrated. I think that Call of Duty can have a lot to offer even from a traditional standpoint, but that $60 price tag often could put off a lot of people. But if there's no reason to not try it and it's free, you're going to garner a much larger audience. Personally, I wonder if in the future, given the popularity of Warzone here, if we see premium titles of, say, the traditional experiences go free to play as well, especially with some of the industry even moving that way with, say, Halo Infinite's multiplayer going free to play. But now, granted, I know that Modern Warfare is not all just roses and gold, and there's absolutely some defining moments that, as a result of these good trade-offs, have a seesaw effect where there is a negative associated with them. And we'll talk about that in a second, but before we do, I want to tell you guys about today's sponsor, Z-League. Listen, man, we've talked about them here on the channel before, and if you're like me, you love competition, but even with those $100,000 prize pool tournaments that are put on by creators in the CDL, it seems like those invites keep missing our inboxes. Regardless, I also don't think that I'd be able to keep up, but Z-League is here to help with that. Built on the idea that everyone deserves a shot at some prize money, it's the world's first skill-based Warzone tournament platform that enables gamers to compete in either free or paid tournaments against opponents of similar skill caliber. Their custom ranking algorithm analyzes all your Warzone stats to place you in a true skill division. With their own custom anti-cheat system to catch and ban hackers, smurfs, or reverse boosters, the playing field has never been more level. Z-League works whether you're on PC, Xbox, or PlayStation, with a number of tournaments regularly active. Now more than ever is a perfect time to sign up because they just launched their biggest tournament ever, the Showdown, and it's 100% free. The Showdown is a 2-week-long free-to-enter trios tournament from July 19th to 31st, and you can play your games whenever you want. Each team will be placed into their skill divisions, with each competing for a slice of the $50,000 total prize pool. Want a shot? Well, all you have to do is register your team for free and jump on in. I highly recommend you guys check it out in the link in the description below, but a big thank you once again to Z-League for sponsoring today's video. But that said, we talked about some of the net positives, but there absolutely were some net negatives of Modern Warfare. The biggest one that I can consider is skill-based matchmaking. From the very beginning, because they were changing the formula on so many things, free DLC, crossplay, and everything like that, they needed to make sure that players had that retention and stayed on the game, and as a result, would maybe buy some things elsewhere. And that's where skill-based matchmaking, retention-based matchmaking, however you want to call it, that's where that came in, because it gave the player a sense of security that they weren't going to get absolutely annihilated by somebody that's just way better, leagues better than them, and shouldn't be in their games. This then allows the casual player to play more and potentially convert over into purchases more. And that's something that we'll talk about in a second, but there's a ton of overpriced store bundles within Modern Warfare, and the way that it's laid out, yes, you get rid of supply drops, but you also end up price gouging just for the fact of knowing exactly what you'll get. Before we get there here with that, I want to talk a little about the gameplay design, because the gameplay design had a lot of flaws in my opinion. While I quite love the storyline, while I quite love the animations, the gunplay, the detail and customization and everything like that with weaponry, some fundamental gameplay design decisions I still don't agree with. One of the biggest ones from the very beginning, all the way back from whenever before Modern Warfare was even revealed, some people ended up getting to play Modern Warfare, myself, a couple of other YouTubers, some press. We were out at Infinity Ward before Modern Warfare was even revealed, and we, at the very end of a presentation talking about Modern Warfare, actually got a little bit of hands-on time with it. But since then, all the way up through then the beta, there was no minimap even initially in the build there. It wasn't in their intended design for the game. They finally caved and gave us the minimap, but even in traditional 6v6, you still don't have red dot icons to showcase where enemies' gunfire is coming from. Instead, that showcases on the compass above at the very top level of the user interface. In Ground War and things like that, gunfire shows up, but not in traditional 6v6 or other modes like that, like it had in the past. Doors were also something that greatly slowed down the gameplay experience and was something that enabled campers, depending on who you ask. Same thing with mounting. You had a lot of head glitches that just were impossible to end up breaking, and with mounting mitigating almost all recoil, it was something that made it an incredible power position that made for an imbalance in gameplay. The TTK itself was also something that fundamentally I didn't quite agree with. It felt way too fast. It was something that you had no reactionary time, and again, kind of playing into those other factors here with doors and mounting and things like that, it enabled camping, because if you ended up moving and getting caught out, there was no ability to outplay an opponent by turning on a dime and taking them out, whereas they shot you first. If you were shot first, 90% of the time, you were dead first. Even down to the things like perks and field upgrade rebalances. Dead Silence being a field upgrade for the longest time was kind of perplexing to people. Looking back, I totally understand why, because it was something that was made for Warzone as a situational use item. If you had Dead Silence as a perk, People think it was bad now. It would just be incredibly bad as its own perk within Warzone. Ghost, though, my big thing is that it protects those that are not moving with Ghost. Previously in, say, Treyarch titles, Ghost was protected only if you were moving, but if you're sitting in a corner or something like that, you're still totally protected by Ghost, and that was something that I didn't necessarily subscribe to. But now coming back to those things tying in with the store bundles and the skill-based matchmaking and things like that, we did end up getting rid of supply drops, sure, but we also then got these replaced by overpriced store bundles. Usually end up seeing things for a max of 2,400 COD points or $20 of real cash once you transfer it over to COD points and get the 400 COD point bonus, but you'll see a lot of things for 1,000 COD points, 1,200 COD points, and it's usually only one weapon skin and a couple of other smaller things like weapon charms, calling cards, emblems, and things like that. That was something that you end up taking out the gambling aspect, but then you overprice everything. But that also may have been a long-term effect here of Warzone, where you don't have any price entry barrier, but you're going to be enticed to buy things at a higher premium because revenues still need to be made on the end of Activision. It's kind of a lesser of two evils, essentially, but it seems to be profitable for Activision, and as a result, I don't think we're seeing this go away anytime soon. Talking about cosmetics, though, one thing that I did not quite like and was a part of these bundles is the blueprint cosmetics. The way they changed weaponry, because they want to make every single weapon unique, they ended up making blueprints for weapons and thus camos not applying to all weapons, but instead just those blueprint weapons of themselves. I don't quite understand the monetary benefit here behind this. I know that myself, as a consumer, I've passed up so many things in the shop because I'm like, well, I don't use that gun even though that camo is really cool, so I'm not gonna buy it. If it was something that I could universally apply to every single weapon, absolutely I'd be inclined to buy it. So I'm very curious as to why this was the way things went here when I think that regular camos could absolutely just make a killing in revenues. I don't get that one. There's a ton of other things here like XP tokens counting down in real time, not in-game time. The seasonal ranking system changing here. Modern Warfare changed it from a traditional prestige system to instead trying to do what skill-based matchmaking does and keep players on as long as possible, bring them back season over season. So instead of not really having a reason to grind out the game, you actually get reset back down to a specific level, so you have to grind all over again each season. So bringing players back in a sense there theoretically, but you also ended up losing out on other things like exclusivity of some specific items because you don't have DLC exclusivity anymore. PlayStation 4 and PlayStation ended up claiming two things in particular that really were a bummer for Xbox One and PC players. Firstly, the 2v2 alpha back in, I believe, July or August of 2019. That was only a 2v2 alpha, so it wasn't anything that players extremely missed out on, but as we talked about, a lot of this stuff carries over into future years, defining a new generation of Call of Duty. We ended up seeing an actual 6v6 build of Black Ops Cold War be PlayStation exclusive this past year, leading up to the beta and then full launch of Cold War. Spec Ops Survival was also something that was exclusive for an entire year, a subset of Spec Ops to PlayStation 4 users. Again, this defining a generation exclusivity, not necessarily being tethered to DLC, but elsewhere in other versions of the game. We ended up seeing that also tied to Onslaught for zombies in PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 users having the exclusivity on that. But perhaps the biggest thing here that is a net negative in relation to Modern Warfare and thus Warzone ties directly into free-to-play. While it's phenomenal that players can jump on and experience Warzone and Call of Duty for absolutely no barrier of entry in terms of monetary cost, that is something that adversely has an effect of, well, there's going to be a lot of cheaters because there is no real punishment. Sure, an account gets banned, but guess what? It takes 5 seconds to create another account, and then with the cheats already installed on your PC or now seemingly going onto console, it's something that you're not going to have a hardware ban, so you can just jump right on a new account and do it all over again. From stories that I've heard of people that have spectated hackers, talked to hackers and everything like that, some of these guys have 10, 15 accounts that they just rotate in and out of. So literally the moment they end up getting one ban, they just log over and within 2 minutes are in another game cheating. That is something that I think that Call of Duty greatly underestimated when it comes to creating a free-to-play experience. We just don't have a proper anti-cheat. You want to go further than just banning accounts, especially for repeat offenders. Go for hardware bans, go for specific IP bans, even though you can sure spoof those pretty easily. but it's something that still has not been taken care of to this day. That said, that's kind of where I'm at here at this. Again, pros and cons, there's a lot of things that define Call of Duty that all pinpoint back down to Modern Warfare, a game that at first seemed to be a modest revitalization of Call of Duty, but then became something so much more. So that said, that's where we're gonna wrap it up. I didn't mean to make this into a tangent. This has been quite a long video. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. Hope you guys enjoyed so far. But let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Do you guys have any net negatives, net positives that you think we missed out on here in this video? Where do you think Modern Warfare stacks up? Personally, I think that Modern Warfare, despite having those net negatives, I think that it's done more good for accessibility, more good for the player's ease of access into DLC content, new weaponry, even just gameplay experiences than it did necessarily net negative. So while I disagree with quite a lot that Modern Warfare had on offer and some of the gameplay and design decisions they took, I think that Modern Warfare still comes away as a win in my book when you look at the future and what it's unlocked for Call of Duty. But said again, wrapping it up, let me know your thoughts down below. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so it's a single thing running all things Warzone, Cold War, Modern Warfare, and anything COD related. We got you covered here on the channel. So if any of that interests you, hit the subscribe button. If you also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get content outside of YouTube. Probably live on both those. So if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. But said, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.